Where's that darn cardi Jew? They're making us ravenous look horrible.
If you've enjoyed this program, please click like and subscribe.
Shalom and welcome again to another exciting edition of Torah Watchman Show International LLC, a genuine 501c3 registered company based out of Maryland, registered to the federal government, where any kind of charitable deduction amount that you would like to donate to my organization and my company is tax deductible. Yes, it is. There's a lot of companies out there. They need to write off their debt and profit margin and their accounting and everything through their CPAs and everything else. They need to show some sort of charitable contribution, even though there are federal limits for that. But why not give it to an organization, a self-started organization, CEO, manager of my company, than a disabled Gulf War veteran? Listen, yes, I'm advertising myself, because I have no advertising department. I have no overhead whatsoever. What goes in, goes out to the field. I hope everyone's been well. None other here than your favorite Carter Jew, Hakam Yar ben-Emmett. God bless you. And now it's time for another Torah cycle reading. For this week, none other than Parshah Balak. The time of this Torah Parsha is on the 5th month for the 13th day, since the head of all months, the holy month of Pesach. I will never mention any Hebrew month that the rabbinites have invented in Babylon that are named after none other than pagan idols, demonic entities, and other gods other than the true God, Jehovah el-Emet. I hope everyone's been well. Let's get ready to dig into Bamidbar and let's understand why the Torah is so critically important for Jews and Gentiles and others in the 21st century. Turn with me in your Bibles, Book of Numbers, and we'll be reading from chapter 22, verse 2 to chapter 25, verse 9. Not too terribly long Parsha. Now, Parshah Balak is usually conjoined with Parshah Kokat that I did a video on the past Sabbath week. Why is it broken out this year? Well, of course, this is a leap year. Yeah, we have extra month of Adar the 2nd for this year, so we have more room to break out these parshas. That means we have, probably for the first time you've heard in 7 years or more, a specific haftarahs for a specific parsha breakout. Now, Balak is not a code name. It's not something that is gassed upon. It's actually a real person, a real title, actually the king of Moab. And that's what most of this parsha is talking about. It's a historical story about tribal Israel 3,500 years ago, when Moshiach was leading tribal Israel gradually and surely to the eastern bank of the Jordan River to cross into Canaan, okay? The promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey. With a lot of resistance among the Jews in the past, the scandal of the spies that went across and gave a horrible report, and ended up Israel circling around and dying in the desert over 40 years. The last parsha we had bad news over the death of Miriam, which is probably quite sudden. No, not a lot of preparation. And then Aaron passing away too. Moshiach felt orphaned, I'm sure. He lost his siblings. He lost his connections. But he was married to his second wife. We talked a little bit about that as well. And he already talked to Joshua that God told him that he would lead the children of Israel across the river Jordan into the promised land, not Moshiach, because Moshiach lost his temper essentially at the rock of Miriam to produce water for the griping souls of Israel that was thirsty, and their animals and livestock were thirsty. But anyway, a general overview: King Balak of Moab. Now, by legend and myth, I would say, you can read about this in the Talmud or the Midrashic studies developed chiefly by Ramban, and I like the latter if I read anything. But it is a legend that Balak was not native to the land of Moab. Whoever the king of Moab was before probably died with no son. And there was nobility for someone in Midian, and they probably had signed foreign policy agreements, some contracts, some sort of business partnership of non-combat, that kind of thing, that they would not fight each other over land or territory or wealth. But anyway, consider this, that someone of nobility in Midian by the name of Balak found a home, found a kingdom, and was nominated as the king of Moab. That's a possibility, and I will give you some clues in this parsha why sages and Hakam other people speculate this is what happened. The name of Balak actually occurs in the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, chapter 22, verse. A general overview again. Balak was afraid. Why was King Balak afraid in Moab? Well, consider what happened in documented Kokat, is that because of the angels of the Lord, and because of God's loving grace and mercy upon his people, that Israel was able to roundly defeat the Amalekites that were disguised as Canaanites. They defeated Amorites as well. They defeated the kings of Sihon and Bashan. Remember King Og, the giant? They defeated Canaanites that were giants in the land, took over their cities, took over their communities, the wells, the resources, the livestock, and everything else, and it was a great slaughter of these people. I want to point out, before I get started with this parsha, something very important that is taken way out of context of what Rashi is talking about non-combat operations to take back Palestine for the Jewish people. It's noteworthy that God told Moshiach to send messengers to these respective kingdoms, to the Canaanite tribes that they dealt with, to the Amalekites, to the Amorites, to the Bashanites, and so on. We do not want to fight with you. We simply want to be able to pass through your territory temporarily because we're looking for a home in Canaan. And at the same time, please allow us to have our livestock use your water supply on the way. We will sheathe our swords. We'll put away our shields. We will not harm you. We will not fight. We will not steal. We'll leave the land better than it was before we pass through. Just as the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, the Lord hardened the hearts of these pagan kings, and they were worshiping other gods like Baal and others. And I'm not going to mention all of them. It's not germane, but they had an affinity toward Hebrew polytheism and had a motivation there, a very strong motivation, anti-Semitism, where they just hated the Jewish people because they were Hebrews. And I already told you about Edom, the Edomites as well, is that there was no combat at all with them because those were descendants of Esau's pedigree. And God promised for a time at least that the servant of Yaakov would not do battle with his brother Esau's ancestors until all the things were fulfilled in the days of Moshiach. So I want to throw that out. The other, Ammon and others were none other descendants from the, I would say, incestuous relationship of Lot and his daughters. without going into more detail. So all these kingdoms were supplanted. Their communities, their livestock was captured, castles and kingdoms, all of them secured by Israelis, essentially. And Moab thought he had a target on his back. Now, what did the king of Moab do? Well, none other than contracted out the equivalent of Moshiach, but in the pagan world by the name of the false prophet Balaam. You think about other pagan prophets in our time, like Nostradamus and others. These people had genuine abilities. I'm not sure how they were able to leverage the earth and so-called magic and extrasensory perception, fortune telling, flashes of insight, necromancy, speaking with the dead, and things of this nature, or how Hosfison has done that his angels personify the demons and the gods of their world, and also people have passed on. That's why it's forbidden the Torah to do anything with tarot cards, crystal balls, to try to contact the dead. It's forbidden. It's forbidden. There are unknown secrets and things like this that the Zohar expounds upon somewhat, but it amounts to witchcraft and warlocks and things of this nature, and it is a contamination among the Jewish people. The Jewish people were subject to a high risk of seduction by the heathen practices around them. So in the end, Balaam, instead of pronouncing curses upon Israel, tribal Israel, as King Balak had commanded him and paid him well to do, and that's what it was paid for. It was paid to go to different lands that had adversarial relationship with the land, the kingdom that had hired him, to curse them, okay? To curse them. But it's interesting, Balaam, instead of cursing, he blessed the children of Israel with some of the very best messianic prophecies found in the Torah. We're going to also talk about in the end of this parsha about a plague, yes, another plague against Israel, and the emergence of a war-fighting Levite of all people, Pinchas, who was none other than a Baal Teshuvah Jew, and he was born of another mother other than the pedigree of Eleazar. But his grandfather was none other than Aaron, the Kohen Gadol. In the end, he became the Kohen Gadol, even though rabbinics listened. He was not born of a Jewish mother. Don't say that Jophro converted over to Judaism, because there's no indication of that, much less any of his people did, But we're going to talk about this. It's a good lesson there about converts, about Baal Teshuvah Jews, and that just like Cardi belief is as absolute as mine and the Torah, nothing else, is that Semitic bloodlines, your Jewish ancestry, should be traced only through the father and not the mother. Okay? That's all I got to say about that. First aliyah is found in Numbers chapter 22, verses 2 to 12. We talk about the Ishmaelites conquered the Amorites and the Bashanites. That's King Og, per se. Two mighty neighbors of Moab and Balak, the king of Moab. These were citadels. These were guardians for pass through the two shared kingdoms of Midian and Moab. So he's afraid. And when people are fearful, they make mistakes, and they're the slippery slope of destruction. And this is what happened. Now, he sent messengers. He sent ambassadors and other people to Midian to locate Balaam and see if he is available to go on a new contract. He was very popular in the land, and again, he was probably equal as far as in a relationship to Moshiach, as far as being our prophet. Well, he was a prophet for the Gentiles. And the messengers were given Balaam an official seal, probably talents of gold and other thing else to bait him in, and told him very clearly that I want you to go and curse the people of Israel, because I'm concerned that their God will fight for them if you don't curse them, okay? But that night, when that contract was officially signed, and when the messengers of King Balak took them back to the land of Moab, There was a night vision that occurred in Balaam when he went to sleep. None other than Jehovah spoke to him. Now, instead of guardian spirits per se, or demonic beings, or voices from the dead, or the Twilight Zone, or something like that, he had a vision from Jehovah identifying, I am the God of Yaakov. They are blessed. And when you go, I want you to go there to them, but you will not curse them. You will only bless them. He warned him, do not go to the children of Israel if you intend to curse them. You will not curse my people, well, they are blessed. You may want to ask, why does Jehovah make such a broad statement to the Gentile world that my people of Israel, my people, are chosen and are blessed? Despite all the sinful stubbornness and everything of the past, there was a remnant there. And just because we break our promises with Jehovah God, it doesn't mean that God will ever break his promises. He will remember the promises he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, right? Amen. The second aliyah in the book of Numbers, chapter 22, verses 13 to 20, Balaam sent word with Balak's messengers that Jehovah doesn't permit him to go to them. So Balak sent more prestigious messengers, high officials, maybe high military officials, people wearing clothes of dignitaries or maybe a royalty, probably more talents of gold, promised him Balaam great riches to return in return of his service. Once again, Jehovah appeared to Balaam. Balaam was caught between a rock and a hard place. He was known as a necromancer. He believed in these spiritual powers that other people were just passing a clap of thunder or something. The world after, he believed in the supernatural, all of this thing, communicating with the dead, all these pagan arts of things, reading the zodiac and foretelling your future, things of this nature. He made a lot of money with this, okay? I don't know how many of these prophecies were proved correct, but Satan has a way of working with individuals that are open to seduction. When they have no virtue or no character, Satan uses them to his end to prove to God that these people deserve to be judged. And unfortunately, Satan has done this in his prosecuting attorney kind of role to the children of Israel well. And that's why so many people died in plagues, the Korach rebellion, etc., because they failed the test of virtue. Now, Jehovah believed what the vision was true. It was probably impactful. Maybe he woke up in a cold sweat. Maybe it's a nightmare. Who knows? This time, Jehovah allowed Balaam to go. So interesting. After two night visions by the God of Yaakov, Balaam was allowed to go on his trip with the precondition that he would not go there and curse the children of Israel. But at least he would be paid, right? He finally committed to his contract, signed contract with King Balak, and went. So provided that he only speaks the words Jehovah dictates to him. So he doesn't have to have a pre-written transcript or speech. He doesn't have to wonder what to say. He doesn't have to wonder how to speak their language, Hebrew, Phoenician, or some sort of Judo-Canaanite language that he did not. God said, I will use you and I will speak through you. It's amazing, folks, that Jehovah will speak truth through anyone that is willing to listen and do his work, whether Jew or Gentile. That could be you. It could be you. Now, third aliyah, Numbers chapter 22, verses 21 to 38, Balaam leaves together with the Moabite dignitaries. So on the second night, they probably spent the night in Midian by the campfire and slept in their tents. So King Balak probably said, I want you to stay there until he gets up and goes, like I hired him to do. And that's exactly what happened. So he had an escort. He had escort for his trip to make sure he safely and securely went to where tribal Israel was located, where they had set up tent in the valley between the adjacent mountains, and didn't turn around. So, but this is an interesting story and very famous. Many Christians know about it in their Bible school and everything else. Very colorful story. But I want to share with you a synopsis. Balaam was on a donkey, and donkeys are very sure-footed on mountain cliffs and other things like that, and rugged terrain. Okay, they don't have the impediments of horses and thrown shoes and things of that nature. They're equipped for that kind of rugged travel. So Balaam rode a donkey, and it was a she donkey. It points it out in the Torah. I don't know why that was important, but it was. And he was riding along the cliff, on the edge of the cliff, imagine a mountain face, looking down the valley where the children of Israel had gathered. He had the entourage of Moab behind him, or leading. He was leading the way, and they were following him, making sure he went to his destination, because there's quite a bit of money that Balak had secured in his investment and Balaam's talents. But what happened? The donkey stopped moving. And why? Because this animal was given the gift of seeing angelic entities. Yes, it beheld a Moloch standing in way in his path, holding a fiery sword and threatening the donkey not to pass. The donkey feared for its life, instinctively. Now, this was the donkey or mule's intellect at that time. The instinctive impulse was to turn around and run away. But what happened is that Balaam kept on striking his faithful donkey. Evidently, this donkey's been with Balaam for quite some time and served him very loyally. And he kept on striking him. And then suddenly the donkey turns back to Balaam. Why are you striking me? Talks to him. Now, I don't know if Balaam was a animal whisperer, or there used to be a show on U.S. television called Dog Whisperer and things like that. Adam actually could talk to the animals too, but Balaam is very talented. He was probably born with these gifts as a child. I don't know. But anyway, he doesn't seem to be surprised that the donkey was speaking to him. Some people speak to their animals. They don't expect their animals to speak back to them. I speak to my cat all the time, but I don't expect her to speak back to me. But this is a very amusing story and very quite entertaining because it has a lot of imagery. In this, I'll show you some images here of a cartoon on depicting this encounter. So the donkey said, "Why are you striking me? You know I've served you loyally throughout all the years." But Balaam kept on striking the donkey until God opened his eyes to see what the donkey was seeing. And sure enough, there was an angelic being standing in a way with a sword, ready to cut him down. Okay? Now, God gave a supernatural vision to Balaam that was quantifiable, measurable, and something that was very impactful on him. He's probably had a lot of supernatural visions before, but nothing this consistent, and probably not this earth-shaking as this event here. So at this humbling episode, Balaam finally arrives in Moab, where he's greeted by Balak. So on his trip was twofold. First of all, he was tasked to go to Israel and pronounce curses. It wasn't until the second trip that more royalty, more dignitaries were able to convince him to actually leave. And of course, God said you're allowed to leave. So on that trip, he went to Balak to receive orders, I guess, per se. Okay? But he conveyed his supernatural vision to the king of Moab when he greeted Balak. And the fourth aliyah, Numbers chapter 22, verses 39 through chapter 23, verse 12, upon Balaam's instruction, Balak reiterated that he wanted to build 7 altars and offer sacrifices to Jehovah. Now, Balaam received various messaging from Jehovah, and only now is it spoken about in this Torah Sidra. So God actually told him, I want you to have seven altars with sacrifice to Jehovah. So then, on his trip back to Israel, where they were encamped, he had to bring all the cattle and wood and sacrificial knives and things like this that he needed for these sacrifices. So this was a huge entourage, a caravan of people and everything else. So what happened, Balak agreed to this because he thought this is part of Balaam's magical ritual. Okay? So from Aram, Balak the king of Moab has brought me. From the mountains of the east, come, curse Yaakov for me, and come, invoke wrath against Israel. Call down your spiritual powers, your magical incantations, your curses and things of that nature against the children of Israel, so they will not succeed to overthrow me, my kingdom of Moab. And of course, Midian was in the same situation too. Okay? So he said, come now and curse the seed of Yaakov. Then, after all of this, Balaam turns to Balak and says, how can I curse whom Jehovah has not cursed? And how can I invoke wrath if the Lord their God has not been angered? Balaam then proceeded to shower the Israelites with beautiful blessings and praises. When Balak responded angrily to the blessing, Balaam reminds him that he can only say what Jehovah tells him to say. Balak was there with him. It was probably in a mountainous chain, along a mountain cliff, and overlooking or something in the rock face, so he could see everything below him, the children of Israel. And Balak was there. And he was turning red in the face and getting very angry. He said, what the H-E-double-L are you doing? This is not what I paid you for. This is not what I heard about your reputation. You're here to curse these people. So Balak did not give up. So in the fifth aliyah, chapter 23, verses 13 to 26, Balak, the king of Moab, takes Balaam to another location, probably by the sleeve, and drags him over. Look at this location. Maybe this is better. You can see more clearly and clear your mind. Why don't you drink some of this wine here or something? So this is a new venue, would be more in a spacious for the Jews. Okay, you could see more of them, see more how they're set up, their battle regiments, their flags, and things of this nature. You could see everything from this venue. Evidently, Balak probably had sent spies up there and watched Israel when they assembled their armies and then encamped in the valley below them. So what happened? They again built seven more altars with the animal sacrifices. And again, Jehovah dictates a blessing for the Jews, which Balaam repeats. Now, if you understand how the prophet Isaiah worked, prophet Isaiah, many times throughout 66 books, and that prophet, the prophet Isaiah, is that God was speaking through Isaiah like I'm speaking to you. And many times, more than just Isaiah speaking for himself, Jehovah God spoke through him. This is how Jehovah was operating with the false prophet Balaam. So when he started to curse or say a magical incantation, instead, God controlled his vocal cords, controlled his tongue, controlled his mind, and embodied him and to speak only the words of emit truth that Jehovah wanted. Of course, this made Balak very angry. So Balaam reminds King Balak that he can only say what Jehovah tells him to say. He was probably frozen in place. He probably felt spiritual power endued with him. You imagine if someone forced you to speak and a voice that was not yours, almost like a disembodied spirit, this is the kind of situation was probably happening. In the fifth aliyah, chapter 23, verses 13 to 26, again, Jehovah dictates a blessing for the Jews. Balaam gives in to that force within him, and Jehovah does not look evil and Yaakov, so how can I say evil about these people? And then God actually said, I've seen no perversity in Israel at this hour, So the Lord their God, Jehovah, is with Israel, and he has the king's friendship. This made Balak Very, very angry. He's probably was cursing in his own native tongue. This entire process repeats over and over again. Balak takes Balaam to another place, hoping Balaam could curse the Jews from there. Maybe it was one of his token altars for an idol or something, a statue or something there. Who knows? This was actually the land of Moab there, the mountainous chain there, overlooking a precipice with the children of Israel in the valley, more than likely. And I'll show you a picture of this, of what artists consider the environment. So how goodly are your tents, O Yaakov, your dwelling places, O Israel, Jehovah, who has brought them out of Egypt with the strength of his holiness. He shall consume the nations, Gentile nations, which are his adversaries. Those who bless him shall be blessed. Do you hear the United Nations? You hear that the Arab nations there, the people that hate the Jews, even the government in power in the United States. Do you hear this? I will curse those that curse you. I will bless those that bless you. Okay? Hopefully when we get a new president in the United States, we'll have a president who's humble and wise enough to know you don't mess with Israel. Just like they say in Texas, you don't mess with Texas. You don't mess with Israel, because when you do, you mess with the God of Israel. Remember that. So Christians or whatever, historically, you have plagiarized the Jewish Bible after your own narrative and created the New Testament. Thanks to Roman Emperor Constantine and others like this and other people, and unfortunately Islam, they took the story there from the Jewish Bible. Moses is mentioned more than Muhammad. They took aspects of the story of Roman Catholicism there, and of course his own story and everything else. So much has been plagiarized from the Jewish Bible for these two major daughter religions. What I'm saying is those are curses, folks. God says you never ever put anything upon my face. You go to me and me only. You don't go to a priest. You don't go to a rabbi. You don't go to even to a prophet. A prophet may speak on behalf of God. We don't have prophets anymore. But I'm saying you go to God when you pray. You go to only God to pray. You don't need an emissary. You don't need a Messiah. You don't need anything. And you don't need a ritual like Balak was expecting Balaam to do to get to God. It's not that difficult. Fall on your face, worship the God of Yaakov, and be saved from your sins. It's that simple. I'm sorry I had to get that out. So this was the last point, the last stand between Balak and Balaam. He cursed him out, and then he sent Balaam on his own way. I don't know if he took the money away. I don't know if Balaam gave him a refund. But, I don't think this ever happened to the prophet Balaam before, the way God used him. But he learned a few things. But this story is not ended with Balaam, the Midianites, or the Moabites. You're going to find out more about happening to that in the next Aliyah. Seventh Aliyah, wrapping up this Parsha, is chapter 24, verse 14, verse 25, 9, ending this Parsha. Before leaving, Balaam prophesies about the end of days. I'm not sure if he did this on his own, or maybe while he's departing, he was already getting ready to pack his bags and get on his faithful donkey and leave back to the land of Midian. But God grabbed him again and said one of the greatest prophecies in the entire Jewish Bible. So please pay attention. I will paraphrase this. I see it, but not now. I behold it, but not soon. A star has gone forth from Yaakov, and a staff will arise from Israel, which will crush the princesses of Moab and uproot the sons of Seth. He also speaks about the eventual destruction of Esau, Amalek, and Assyria, following Balaam's unsuccessful attempt to curse the Jewish nation. Now, what we're talking about, Esau, is none other than the Edomites were a paramilitary force that's actually sent on behalf of King Nebuchadnezzar II, Babylon, which is actually the land of Edom, per se, to actually destroy King Solomon's temple and massacre everyone else there. But Babylon does not exist anymore, and you see a rock on the map, that's all that's left. Persia does not exist anymore. You see Iran, that's all that's left. And as far as the great and mighty Roman Empire, you're talking about the beast that the prophet of Daniel was talking about. It's the Vatican in Rome and a very small country, okay? There's no empire left, no remnants left of these great nations. This is the prophecy fulfilled here. There's no Philistines anymore. There's no Amalekites anymore. There's no Canaanites anymore. There's certainly no Assyrians anymore, because Assyria was destroyed by the angels of the Lord, and also by various kingdoms that rose up in power, like King Nebuchadnezzar and the kings of Persia. Okay? So you can see what happened. If you date these things properly, as you should, these prophecies were made way in the past, and the future, these things were finally revealed. And this is what God was trying to say. These may be your enemies today, but they will be defeated tomorrow. I will remember my promises I made to Esau and Jacob, but his hatred for the children of Israel will reach critical mass one day, and I will utterly destroy all remnant of Esau. And it says, and very clearly in the Torah, Yaakov I have loved, Esau I have hated. God will bless those that bless Israel. God will curse those that curse Israel. And continuing on in the seventh Aliyah, it says, following Balaam's unsuccessful attempt to curse the Jewish nation, Moabite and Midianite women seduce Jewish men to worship Baal Peor deity, which was predominant in that area of the world. Balaam did not want to leave empty-handed. He said, I tell you what, I may not be able to say a curse against Israel, but what you can do, a trick here, you can curse these people, because the men love the lovely women of Moab, and they're not faithful with their wives. And, there are some men that are more weaker than others. The way to corrupt and make spiritually unclean the Jewish people is to seduce their men through extramarital affairs with your daughters, your women here, and bring your idols down into their tents. That will destroy the nation of Israel from within. So pay attention to this. So this is exactly what happened. Now, Jehovah commands Moses, when this is going on, God was cursing the children of Israel. Everyone contracted a deadly fatal plague, and everyone was dying. Different levels of sickness and illness, elderly and children, women may be more vulnerable. But there was a center point where the plague was metastasizing, and it was readily radius, going outward from those center points. So what happened? God commands Moshiach to execute the people. For some reason, Moshiach did not quickly respond in time until Pinchas came out. Pinchas actually, his mother was, his brothers, his half-brothers or whatever, was making fun of him because his mother managed the sheep herds of Jethro's pagan gods. Anyway, he was ostracized, and he was probably a Levite water carrier or something of no renown whatsoever. But Pinchas had the fire of the Lord, his God, within him. Moshiach was hesitant to execute the leaders. God said, execute the leaders, and the plague will end. So Pinchas, went out of his way, found out which chieftain was committing the great sin, or chieftains. It says here, a Jewish leader, Zimri, publicly displayed the Midianite princess with whom he was consorting, per se, okay? And it wasn't just extramarital affairs. Jewish men were forbidden to have any kind of carnal relations with the Moabites and Midianites. Forbidden with those women, forbidden. And because they always brought idols with them, and that automatically made the land that the nefesh of God was dwelling in the Ark of the Covenant and the Mishkan and the tabernacle there, all that land that God was touching was contaminated. And the people were dying because the land was contaminated and God's spirit protection was removed, and all the natural evils around them, environmental toxic influences, were rebounding back. Okay? So if they were in the Garden of Eden, they were driven out of the Garden of Eden of protection, and people were dying. So Phinehas, or Pinchas, is another way of knowing that word. Aaron's grandson kills them both. This is premeditated murder, by the way. So there are two chieftains that was responsible for this. Zimri was one of them. One Jewish leader was mentioned here. And the moment that Pinchas took a spear and drove it through the sexual partners there and killed them, the plague halted. If someone was dying from the plague, they would be completely resuscitated. The plague is halted, this parsha ends, and when we read the next parsha about Pinchas, you'll find out that Pinchas was arrested for murder, and of course capital punishment awaited him. You find this interesting. Well, God has a will and intent in everything. There's always a need and always a reason why God does what he does. Why he chooses outcasts and people of no renown to do great and wonderful things, that's just how God works. Or you think God would work with the elitists, the most righteous of rabbis and things of that nature? No. God works with the Nachmans of the world. He works with B'nai Noach of the world. He works with Carter Jews, which I think is the most humblest Jews, the most ancient of Jewish sects in the world today. Haftarah is in Micah chapter 5, verse 6 through chapter 6, verse 8. Now in Micah 5 is a very interesting set of verses. Consider the state of Israel today. Israel brags on their diversity, their equity, inclusion. You hear all these wokeism words and everything else. They brag on allowing Christian missionaries to come there to convert vulnerable Jewish nursing home residents by giving them Yiddish Bibles, version translated from the New Testament writings of Paul. They have Christian broadcasting and TV and things like that. Of course, the Catholic Church is embedded within Israel, and in fact, there's 1/4 per se of Jerusalem that's given to Coptic Christians and other people. Every Christmas they have a Christmas tree. And along with the menorah and everything else, and they have Mother Mary and of course the Nativity, all this stuff. And they think it's beautiful and the lights and everything else. But folks, at the end of the day, this is paganism. It is. There's only one God. There's not a triune Godhead. And there's no such thing as God choosing a demigod or man to die for your sins. But all of this is allowed to persist and metastasize in Israel. And unfortunately, their churches have been there so long, they're historically protected through the United Nations. Same thing could be said about my Arab brothers in Islam and things of this nature. They have completely robbed away from the Jewish soul 4 out of 5 holy sites. I'm talking about the tomb of the patriarchs in Hebron. I'm talking about the tomb of Joseph, believed to have been in Shechem. I'm talking about Bethlehem, is completely controlled by a Palestinian administration. Of course, no Jew on the planet is allowed to even pray on the Jewish Temple Mount. We gave all that away, all that treasure, all that holiness, and everything was won in the war of 1967. We gave away all that land, all that righteous land. I hear that an ancient altar that was uncovered within the last 5 or 8 years of Joshua has been vandalized repeatedly by the Palestinians. They're supposed to be taking care of these historical landmarks, but they destroy them. We have Buddhist temples in Israel. We have other religious faiths in Israel too that believe in different aspects of God, but not the true oneness of God, the Akkad of God, as told in the Torah and the Jewish Bible. Well, folks, one day all of this will end. So read with me in Micah 5, verse 12, and don't shoot the messenger. I think I'm being too harsh here. And I will destroy your graven images and your monuments from your midst, and you shall no longer prostrate yourself to your handiwork. Any structures, any raised altars and things of that nature, other than the temple on Har Habi, is admonished by God to be razed to the ground and destroyed. Verse 13, and I will uproot your Asherim, the Asherah poles and things of this nature. Folks, throughout northern Israel, there was paganism. Even when Judah and Benjamin was actually still keeping a semblance of temple worship and sacrificial offerings, following the Torah, like King Hezekiah, northern Israel was very, very pagan, and it was easily seduced. Ephraim was easily seduced by these pagan traditions and paganism here, polytheistic beliefs. Anything that is raised in an altar form, especially you have a grove around it of trees, is forbidden. It's absolutely forbidden. In fact, even if you wanted to worship God through an altar in your backyard, because a lot of these sacrificial offerings occurred in Shechem before King David captured Jerusalem from the Hittites, the Canaanites there, it was forbidden too. We are not allowed to do any sacrificial offerings whatsoever outside the temple area, except for the red heifer. And I talked about that in the last Parsha. In verse 14, and in anger and fury I will execute vengeance upon the nation who have paid no heed. So those nations who have attacked Israel because they're Jews, the final solution of Hamas is to kill every Jew on the planet and drive us into the sea. That's what the Palestinians say. From the river to the sea will be free. The United States allows these people with a vicious hate and said, kill the Jews. It has Nazi swastikas and everything, has Hamas flags. Even some ISIS terrorists have been recently arrested and detained by our federal government recently for crossing a porous border. And you have all of this. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord my God. God is the ultimate judge. God has a perfect zokar memory of these things, and God will remember the promises he made to Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, and he will punish the wicked. And this includes both Jews and Gentiles. So if you are a Jewish organization or foundation in Israel that you want to partner with Christians, because you say all Christians love Israel. Yeah, they love the baptizers. Let's force a gospel tract down there. And if you have all these organizations working with evangelists and pastors and all this, this is an abomination before God. Now listen, to be fair, Arabs have the right to their own faith. And most rabbis I have talked to believe that Allah is the same as God, and they have a monotheistic true faith. They believe at least in one God. Christians believe in three aspects of God, a Trinitarian Godhead, and that's even worse. But still, a Jewish synagogue or a place of worship should take priority in Israel, in my opinion, above a mosque, above a Buddhist temple, above a Christian church. We should no longer fund all of these things in Israel. Why? Because God forbids it. The Moshiach will tear it all down. Do we want an easy road for the Moshiach or a hard road? And that's how I want to end this Torah Parshah Balak. I want you to understand where my heart is. I'm a Torah purist and true to the Torah, nothing else. If God says this is an abomination, this angers me, I will reap my vengeance against those people who do these things. Please hear those messages, not mine. If I'm reading something from God's holy word, which I did in this Parsha, and I always try to do, don't shoot the messenger. If people say, why are you so grumpy? Why are you so harsh? Well, I'm telling you, this is the world today. This is what we're doing today. And this is what God warned that what would happen, the consequences of those action decisions today. We're paying for a very bloody war with Hamas and Israel today that was completely preventable. But the IDF chief of staff allowed it to happen, and Benjamin Netanyahu allowed it to happen. And now 1,200 innocent Jewish souls are departed from this planet forever. And numerous hundred, probably more than 100 hostages, mainly women and children, were murdered as well. This is because of Arab appeasement, because of Palestinian appeasement. This is because we are bowing to every entity and every government entity and organization on the planet except the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the God of the heavens, the God of the earth. When will we learn these lessons of truth? It's black and white, folks. It's black and white. And when I go to Israel in about 6 years, I'm going to do a survey, a town hall meetings with other people, and I want to run as a member of the Knesset for major reforms in Israel. I have a video about this. Please watch it. Thank you for your attention to this Torah lecture. Remember my motto: share the knowledge and wealth and love and truth with everyone willing to hear it. If they're resistant to that truth, they think you're a hypocrite, they think you're suffering from ivory tower syndrome, then you be that Torah. Help them out to pay off a debt. You know, my organization raised $600 to save a Ugandan mother in brain surgery. It's life and death situation. I told my wife, if you want your sins forgiven, give to DACA, give charity. Kindness and love and treating people equally. I do not resent you, Christian. I do not resent you, Muslims out there, if you're watching me. I don't resent you. We need to have so-called tikkun olam and come together and say we can all say shalom. But understand, if you're in the land of Israel, it is God's rules, not the Jewish government's rules. It's God's rules that applies. If you live in that land, you need to behave yourself. And we are very stubborn and stiff-necked people, aren't we? Well, take care. This is Hakam, your ben-Emmett signing out to the next time. Please tune in to this channel for regular updates. And, before you say, I missed that red-haired carded Jew, I'll be right back with another exciting Torah lecture or documentary or some important thing that I need to get to you. I fall on my face for inspiration of God. And when I get that information, I get that excitement with me, like Pinchas. May we all aspire to that kind of Zionist spirit within him. I just have to do another video. But you motivate me more than anything else because I love to speak to you. And I want to say shalom aleichem. Take care. And God bless you, whoever and wherever you are in the world. Just know that God has a plan for your life. He wants to uplift you. He wants to forgive you. He wants to restore you. Let me say all, amen.